as an alliance partners of Korn Ferry, we have been always very much interested in leadership, and in leadership in crisis in particular. And now we have a perfect classroom for that, because we have healthcare crisis coming together with economic crisis, which we never had a chance to observe before. And we are very fortunate today to have Brigitte Morel-Curran as our guest speaker. Brigitte is leading CEO Institute and is a senior client partner of Korn Ferry. And Brigitte is locked up down today in Arizona in her son's place. But she helped to build so many CEOs' career before that. So we would like to ask just one very brief and maybe very easy question to you, Brigitte. What do outstanding CEOs do differently in crisis time?
Yes, and that's, thank you, Oksana, and that's exactly perhaps the topic I hope to share some experiences and ideas with this, distinguished audience. So we have, nearly 40 participants are online at the moment, and I am humbled and honored of this opportunity to speak with all of these CEOs and C-level executives and share a little bit of what I've learned, particularly in the last several weeks, as I talk to my clients and my participants. And I perhaps the one thing I wanted to start talking about is how do we, I'm trying to get these slides going. It's leadership, as we all know, when you get into these big enterprise roles where there is such a complexity and multiplicity of challenges, and you need to work across and think across and inspire so many stakeholders, means that you show up. You are always on the spot. As a CEO, what you say matters, the way people look at you matters, and you are very often quite careful about how you show up. And then there is a chatter in your head. There is things that go in your head which more often than not you don't talk about. And what I have heard or sensed from my clients and wonderful participants in these past few weeks has been a lot of, a bit of anxiety, some fear, some self-doubt, big questions because, how long will this go on and what will come next and how on earth can I provide clarity? You tell me to provide clarity. I am in the darkness. Who knows? And, what I need to do is manage the cash. And, I have got these 2 weeks outlook on how I'm going to, serve the company. And what if I do something today that put the business in peril? So all these questions, if you have these questions in your head, just know you're not alone. And I know also that some of you are going to be energized because you are CEO, you are where you are because you have that agility, that you are energized by challenges very often. You enjoy the unknown, and you are really quite finding that quite exciting. So we have the gamut of emotions and reactions to what's going on at the moment. And clearly the business in which you are, that matters, right? If you are in consumer products at the moment and you are dealing with unbelievable supply chain challenges, and if you are with pharma and you need to collaborate with your competitors, and how do I do that? Because the world needs me to respond, but tomorrow I want to be fit. And if you're an airline and your business is down and your future is, for quite a bit of less traveling, before it gets back. And if you're a bank and you have a run on the cash and government asking you to be an intermediary into all these loans and mortgages, so wherever you are, your context is very unique. But one thing is true: the world has changed on you, and when the world changes on us, it just gets us into a place that takes its toll. And it takes its toll physically. It takes its toll because you've got to work around the clock for some of you, because you had this great strategy and you got to, throw that by the window to focus on the next months, because you are, like Oksana said, you're working from home, you're not traveling, you cannot see people, you have all these mental, spiritual challenges as well. And I have a good news, and that's really the purpose of this talk, is that we develop through there is actually very serious research that shows that it is those moments that get us as leaders and as people to just learn and to grow. And one of the reasons why we grow is, whether we like it or not, we are under stretch, and we have to get out of our comfort zone on so many things. So one of the silver lining, perhaps, of this unbelievable situation is that for all of us, it is a time of becoming a bigger us, a bigger me. What it is that is an unknown resource I didn't quite know I had, but I have to put that at play today. And that's really what I want to speak with you about today. It's how do we find those resources that are going to do two things. They're going to get us out of this recession in a stronger place personally. We're going to be better leaders as a result. And they're also going to help us lead our business to be stronger, where the competitive field will change dramatically. And while we don't know how it will change, what we do know is that the stronger leaders lead the stronger companies and benefit competitively from the shift in the market space in which they are. And that is going to be true of just about every market environment in which we play. So think about that. You will hear me talk a lot about opportunities. So what I thought about is kind of 8 tips or tricks that you read maybe already about, but to put some color around how do you do that as a CEO, as a COO, etc. And I see that one person has raised their hand, and I may ask you if you would just tap quickly on the chat panel to send your question, or even if you have a remark concerning the quality of the communication, that would be helpful. And let me move to my tip number 1, which is taking perspective. And taking perspective, a way to think about it is, you look at this picture and you say, oh my goodness, what is this guy feeling? He's in this hugely dangerous place, and what is going to go first? The bicycle or the man? And then, how that photo was taken? This is a man that just fell in a tunnel. And if you look at both of those, you say, my first reaction to this, because that's what our mind does to us, it kind of dictates responses, it dictates how we interpret things. And to take perspective sometimes needs to step back. And you will hear me talk about Stickback a little more. I have another one of those, which is kind of fun. How do you think those two people feel? One is falling in the unknown, which some of us are feeling. That's what's happening to me at the moment. And then the other one is saying, oh my God, my my friend is gone. And again, that's how the photo was taken, right? There's a great website that has these photos that I've reused. But my point is that we have mental scripts. We are driven by this little part of our brain here to give meaning and to provide explanation based on our mental mindset, based on beliefs, frameworks that we grew up with, and those frameworks have a lot to do with the values we learned when we were young, the hardship we have been through in life, the way in which we think about things is driven by immediate interpretation. And to step back and look at an object in a different way, perspective, is really a good way to perhaps reshape or reframe that. So I will encourage you to do that. And one of the things we also do when we look at this image, and particularly the one on the left, some of us look at this image and say, this person's going to die, and it does something to your heart. You feel emotionally impacted because there is something you have naturally to you, which we call in our jargon empathy, but which naturally you kind of connect emotionally with what's going on into others. Some of you look at this picture and say, oh, that's an accident about to happen. They are perhaps a little bit less about that emotional connection and a little bit more about the risk and the fact. And guess what? That's my tip number 2. My tip number 2 is know where you are and know your comfort zone. I talked a little bit about this being an opportunity to be out of comfort zone, but comfort zone is often something you're not aware of. And I like this example of the space of courage and compassion, because this is mostly, and again, that's a research-based point, the vast majority of people, not all, tend to have much more of one than of the others. We have naturally and through our upbringings, leaders who are more into courage, which is so needed today. That needs to be done. I need to sell the business. I need to, manage this issue, and I'm just going to have to do it. And they just drive for what is right. Some leaders have much more of an emotional reaction with the consequences on their fellow human beings. The compassion, the empathy, the feeling about, oh my God, I need to put, one of my clients has to put, 30,000 people unemployed, and in some countries that have no safety net. And he's not sleeping over that. He's doing it, but he's not sleeping over it. He says, I just find that so difficult. And he's done it before, and again, he's managing himself. But know your comfort zone, because guess what? You need to do both. Today, you need to be courageous as ever before. And by the way, you need to do that fast. And these opposite of behaviors, I like to, joke that when you become a CEO, you are asked to do everything and its opposite, particularly in these days and age. You need to be a perfectionist and really quality orientated, but you need to be fast. You need to be decisive, but you need to make sure everybody is collaborating and has consensus. You need to be visionary, but you need to get into the details too, and you need to listen and to guide and to tell. And naturally, we all are at one end or on the other, generally. Some of us have more of both, but it's more rare than not. So knowing your comfort zone is one of these real points of exploration for you, because I call it comfort zone on a purpose. I call it comfort zone because naturally this is where you go, and when you're pulled on the other hand, it's hard. And and you have to demonstrate both. So I just got a great question, Irina, thank you. My GM believes that we are too caring to our people, forgetting the purpose, because we are here to sell and deliver results. And have you experienced similar? How do you ensure we demonstrate both, that both are important? And again, the fact is that your general manager may be more on one hand, and there is some work around why is people impacted important. For a start, they are your future customers, they are your future employees. You know, recessions come and go. You are all at different levels in your life and experience, but I have 30 plus years experience. Believe me, recessions come and go. And in the future, you will need talent, you will need people, you will need customers, you need to create goodwill now. Is that one value proposition point for the compassion? So know your comfort zone. My third point has to do with context and clarity. And I have taken that picture because in the news at the moment, I'm quite impressed how those two ladies have attracted the attention of journalists. And they've attracted the attention of journalists because of what they have said and how they have communicated in the last 4 weeks. And I will let you Google them. There's quite a lot of interesting stuff. But the thing that really struck me is that the two things that they have done is say things that are really clear and really try and be very clear and simple. One of the challenges of the leadership is that you deal at your level with a lot of complexity. So when you need to give clarity, you say, oh my God, how can I give clarity? Because from where I am, I don't see it, right? I don't see the future. One of your questions is, what is the prognosis for the international labor market? Good question. I think there is a lot of hypotheses. There is a lot out there, including on the Korn Ferry website. But the reality is that there is still quite a bit of darkness. And what these two ladies have been noted for is to bring their language to the simpler things that will help people. There is some language analysis where they use a lot of because. They explain a lot of the why. Here is why we are doing this. You need to do this because. So they have brought a sense of context by helping people have a way to relate to something that they know. And the reason why there is so much anxiety in the world at the moment is that our human minds and our human nature needs clarity and needs control. That's who we are. We need clarity, we need control. That's why people run and get out of the bank and get toilet paper out of the stores. It's because that's one thing I can control. And that gives me an emotional comfort because I feel I can be in control. And what they have done in their communications is give people a way to feel in control. At the smallest, psychological level, that's important. So that's this idea. Leaders talk about context and managers talk about content. And to talk about context is to talk a lot and a lot more than you sometimes have time for about the why, about the reasons, about the context. And it's hard to talk about context in a way that is simple, particularly the lower you go into the hierarchy of your stakeholders. So think about those two things around the to-dos. the need to communicate so many more than you have done before and so much more than you feel you want to. The need to communicate, one to many, because you don't have the time to communicate one to one. You have to optimize your time in the one to many. Therefore, the need to make your messages clearer and simpler and to focus on the context. And how you do that in your context, I know hard work and not so easy, but that's probably one of the guidance now. The other couple of things that I've noted of analyzing what these two leaders have done, one is it's okay to say, I don't know. As a leader, we are expected, and all sorts of mechanism. One of the reasons we get in these big jobs is because we kind of like when people ask us something and we have the answer. There is a rewarding aspect to it. We also like to help. We like to be, when somebody comes and say, can you help me with this? There is something that attracts us in doing that. So be aware of those tendencies if they are true for you, and be aware also of, the reservation around saying, I don't know. There's so many things we don't know today. So it's okay to say. And still, the now to next is the big picture. So keep thinking about that. The next point I wanted to talk about is kind of that hyperactivity versus pause. What's happening at the moment is that we are all into a mode of action orientation. There is uncertainty, there's firefighting, I need to get things done, I am under huge pressure, my board, my team, my customers, the regulators, the ever-changing political environment or regulatory environment. I am constantly shooting emails and picking up calls. And that's kind of what we are wired to do in many ways. Many of you are where you are because you're pretty good at that, I expect. You're pretty good at action orientation. You're good at controlling stuff, and it's also a way in which you work. You're good at decisions. And at the moment where so much is going at you, the one thing that suffers even more than in usual life is the pause. And I want to, really talk to you about pause, because pause is about just making a little bit of time. You may not have the luxury of a 2-hour walk in the woods. I get that. But you do have the luxury of a moment in your day where you're going to step back and just examine what you are doing about. What are the 10 emails you have written? Did you need to write them? Could anyone else have done that? How do you allocate your time where you and only you can add value and where you are going to make the biggest difference in this situation? That's a sentence I would like you to just write in your little, reminders if you haven't done that yet. Where do I best deploy myself, my bandwidth and my energy and my time for value at the moment? The other thing about pause, and again, a way to think about that is, in 5 years from now, when I look back, what it is that I want to look at. What do I want to not have missed? There is also something about, and that I'm sure many of you already do that, even your question on the panel also, is, in the future, my world is going to change. I cannot just focus at the today. And the future is pretty dark. But how will we possibly prosper differently in a year from now and in 5 years from now? And unless you ask those questions and you get into that discussion, I think there is an opportunity for you to just listen. So this is getting the panel going. So let me maybe tackle one of your questions. Now it's time for drastic, sharp decision in front of uncertainty and changeable scenarios. Till which extent the CEO should be able to delegate decision, risking the speed and efficiency in the decision process, and should concentrate decisions on himself, risking the management team to support him. This is an excellent point, because that is one of the big dilemmas that many of you are dealing with. How much should I delegate? How much should I take on myself? I will offer two ways to think about that. First of all, I don't have an answer for you. This is an area where really you need to think for yourself in your environment. I do have an hypothesis. Many of us tend to be more in control than we need. You know what? That's a reality. Because that's a bit of comfort zone for all of us. Many of us tend to really worry about the risk of delegation. And one of the big out of comfort zones that is going to be a stretch with many of you is that very point. Is how are you going to stretch yourself from where you are, saying, you know what, I'm going to stop dealing with this. I'm going to ask whoever, Anton, to work with that. And then, you know, that's a risk you're taking. My question to you is that risk bigger than you being so overwhelmed by everything on your inbox that you overlook something big, right? Those are the kind of things you need to wrestle with. And again, examine yourself. Are you a huge delegator? You have empowered a lot of people, you know your people, you have a really strong team, and then you feel you have delegated as far as you can go? Or you really, and perhaps you need to have a few more people in your circle. Perhaps you need to get somebody from the outside to delegate to. Perhaps you need to elevate the threshold of your decision-making approach. That's a very, very important point. Thank you for making it really, really is a good contribution. So let me take a moment, because I feel also our time going. I do want to talk about purpose. A lot of you have heard about purpose, and we in the Chief Executive Institute have made purpose one of the big components of our work. And some of you have probably done a lot of purpose work on yourself. Some of you may not have, doesn't matter. Wherever you are, you can always explore. But I'd like to just spend a minute and give you a little way to think about how do you get yourself emotionally into that place. And purpose is a place. Purpose is a place that has been with you before, and it's something that is part of who you are, but it's very often a little bit less into your consciousness or into the words that you use. But the idea of purpose is that moment where you are just the best you can be. You know your talents are at play. You are doing something which feels right. You are working and behaving according to your values. You are into a space where you feel you are at your best and make an impact that gives meaning for you. And the reason why purpose is so important in a time of crisis is that when we are in purpose, when we think about, you know what, I am doing what matters to me. I am doing this. I am working I'm talking to this extraordinary group of C-level executives and hopefully helping them think about themselves and how they are going to deploy the best of who they are. And there is a lot there to unleash in that crisis. That's a place of purpose which feels right. And what I have prepared for you, and I want to leave that slide on a little bit, I've prepared for you an area of reflection, which I hope some of you will consider. And we call it the squeegee model. It's been developed by my wonderful colleague, Kevin Cashman. And Kevin has done some really profound work on purpose-driven enterprise leadership. His book called Leadership from the Inside Out is about that. You lead through the uniqueness of the person you are. You are not expected to be extraordinary, to do magic. You are expected to be the best you are. You are where you are because you're great. You are a fantastic person. You have talents that have brought you to this level. And now it's about unleashing your talent. So the first question is, what are those talents? What are those gifts? Because your talents have gifts that you have received. Your talents has what you have been made of. You might be very, very smart. You might be very, very agile. You're probably very astute emotionally. You're probably very good at managing complexity. Those are gifts. What are my big gifts? What are the ones that shine? And if you think about your gifts, think about what impact you want to make. What do you want to give? When you are in purpose, you make a difference, and you make a difference on the people you impact. And when you're a CEO, you impact a lot of people. You impact the people you touch and the people you don't touch. So think about that questions on, when you give the best of who you are, how does it make a big difference in the lives of people you touch, people you don't touch? And then the third question I'd love for you to ask yourself is, for me to be the best I can be, how do I need to grow? What are those things I need to develop or to think about that are going to get me to elevate my performance and to elevate my impact towards my purpose? So we do one-day workshops, one-year programs, work on purpose. So I'm sure those couple of minutes don't fit this. But I'm hoping I give you a sense of, again, what we see as one of the core differentiators of leadership, around looking inside and deploying yourself the best you can, and then stretching yourself. And I was going to stop there because I think there is a lot there in terms of tips. But there are two things I want to mention, and then I'd like to open it perhaps for questions. Nourish your energy. I'm sure you're reading a lot about it. This is a time where you are asked, you are under fire. You have so much to deal with. And again, your panel questions. You are asked to take care of people. You're asked to look at new opportunities. You're asked to do everything. How much time should you spend? And that's your question, Alexei. How do I allocate my time? Well, there is a great article written by one of our wonderful colleagues, and that was in the Harvard Business Review several years back, called Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time. And I would invite you to think about, how do you actually nourish your energy? We all know it. It's a matter of reminding you all to make sure that you do get these rejuvenating moments in your day, particularly when we are all confined, where you're going to tackle the afternoon with a renewed energy, focus, and productivity. It's as simple as that. So don't forget that. The last thing I want to mention, and that's my last tip for you, there is a lot of brain. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my tip number 7. That's my tip number 7. Tip number 7 comes from brain research. Again, lots written on the topic. One of the things we do know, now that the brain is starting to be better understood, is that when we mindset ourselves, when we think about that chapter in our head, and we do 2 things, we cultivate gratitude and we share optimism. when we do those two things, a whole lot of things happen. In ourselves, we get ourselves into a less stressful place, less anxious, more purposeful, more grounded. And this is one of the easiest things for us to do. What are you grateful for? What are you thankful for? What it is that you love at the moment in your life? There's one thing that is better than it was before. Time with family, no travel, pick one. But there is one thing that's better. What it is that you're grateful for, the people around you who support you at the moment, perhaps ways that are different. Cultivate it and share it. And that has got a lot of impact on you, positive mindset and optimism, that has got a lot of impact on other people. And that's my point number 8, and I'd like to close here. Point number 8 is don't go alone. We actually know that, shared pain is half the pain. Relationships and the brain shape who we are. And in these times, you need people that you can really be with, talk with, unpack with. A lot of the questions you've asked around how much time and effort do I need to spend in the future? One of the reasons why it's a hard question to think about on yourself is that it's a conversation that you need to be able to engage someone, engage a peer, engage a friend, engage a family member, engage a coach, engage a consultant, engage someone. Because those great questions don't have a single answer. And if there is a big question in your mind that you find hard to answer on yourself, know that when you exchange with someone, your brain will create a space of exploration and clarity that will help you with those questions. So those are my 8 tips for you. I trust it is helpful and useful. And I'd love to open it up for questions, further dialogues. I don't know how we do that. Maria, do we need to open up for questions, or would you prefer we deal with the chat? I'll let you talk about the technology. Let me scan the chat, or is there any further point you would like me to talk about?
Yes, Brigitte, I feel we have already some questions in the chat. I see one question from Alexei Korovin. And Alexei is asking, first he's thanking you for sharing your thoughts, and his question is about interesting thing. During this crisis, CEOs need to protect the core, take care of staff members and key clients. However, a lot of new opportunities emerge. How much time and efforts, in your opinion, CEOs should spend exploring these new opportunities? Meaning the split of taking care of the existing problems, which are common with that great speed, which one can never imagine before. And thinking about the future, creating something which will help your business to grow and be successful in the future.
Yeah, this is such an important question. So I can tell you an example. I am on the board, and obviously we have had COVID crisis board meetings like every other board on the planet. And one of the things that popped up in a board conversation was this company, since the differentiator, that was a very marginal part of the business. And all of a sudden, we started to talk about this. And the CEO said, you know what? I just realized this is the way the world is going. It's something to do with digital communication, technology. And we absolutely need to leverage that much more than we have done before. And they decided to put a task force on it. He said, you know what? I have a couple of people who are not busy. I'm going to get them to work on this right now and to just, get a task force. So that's one example. It doesn't mean you as a CEO has got to spend the, again, it's about time versus bandwidth and mindset. As a CEO, do you need to allocate mindset to the long term? That's kind of a big part of your role, right? A big part of your role is to look into the darkness of what comes out of COVID and to think about, it's a darkness, but there are some trends. I mean, again, I'm no economic expert, but I read like everybody, right? Less travel, more homework, more digital, at home deliveries, stuff like that apply very differently to different businesses. So if you pick one and you said, you know what, that's something we are maybe something to leverage, or that's something we are not good at, and that will become something we need to be at least as good as competition at. That's your job as a CEO, to engage in these conversations, to engage the right thought partners to help you think through these things, and then to make sure that parts of your business are keeping an eye on the long term. So yes, I would say definitely part of your bandwidth, part of your energy, then you allocate your very precious time. The hardest thing to do.
Thank you. Brigitte, another question from Mikhail Malachov. Could you please share your thoughts on how to find a good balance on being both demanding and supportive to your team members under that circumstances?
Yeah. I would offer part of this is really to examine yourself. What is your style normally? Are you kind of the demanding style, push, we can do more competitive mindset? And one of the feedbacks you've had in the past is that you push people too hard, or on the contrary, are you praised for seeing someone who is caring and supportive and takes a real people lunch? And then that's half of your answer, because part of making that balance is also going to be, how do you communicate? And I've seen some great leaders. Again, I think the way some of the those political leaders have communicated was well done. And there are some business leaders who have been known for this. One of the things that went viral at least 4 weeks ago was a video by the CEO of Marriott. His name escaped me, Sven, something like that, CEO of Marriott. And he went viral. And if you haven't had it, Google it. It's a great 5-minute, 10-minute video. And he is a guy, I mean, Marriott, it's like overnight, the hotels are empty. And he made a video that was kind of this really demanding and really taking courageous and taking very tough call. And it was full of empathy, full of compassion, full of understanding. People understand fair process. People understand that what you are doing is for the future of the business, of the company. And when you show that you care about people's health, which is why we are all doing this, we're all doing this because we don't want people to die. So we care collectively about health, and we care about people's well-being in these times, and an outlook for the future. And that's a kind of supportive language that helps people understand the tough, demanding decisions. And people will rise to the bar you raise for them if you give them trust and support, I would say.
Thank you, Brigitte. We have one more very bright question from Georgy Gorshkov. He's saying thank you for an outstanding session, and his question is, have you ever seen CEOs and or companies that were thinking too much about the purpose and thus missing the hard commercial goals. Clearly, purpose is the long-term thing, but can you overdo thinking about your purpose?
Hello, Yogi, and thank you for a fantastic question. Sometimes, and again, we have a bit of that mindset around the soft stuff and the hard stuff. So purpose and taking care of people and compassion and all that seems stuff, and control, results, bottom line. That's what we need to spend our time on. The reality is that there's ample research showing that purpose powers performance. That is a reality. Purpose powers performance. I am not saying that it's a well-known, again, Google that, purpose powers performance. And the reason why I emphasize this is that the way in which purpose enables the hard business of enterprise leaders, it's because it gets leaders to be the better of who they are. And by being the best of yourself and thinking about your best self, you become the stronger leaders that has ripple effect over your business. So can you spend some time, too much time on purpose? Again, it's a little bit of that time versus mindset. One of the things I do a lot with some of our participants is that we have these, it's a technique of purpose, micro purpose moments. This is a 1-minute technique where you close your eyes, you take a deep breath, and you get back and say, what am I the best at and what impact do I want to have? What impact do I want to have? And in less than a minute, your mind and your brain and your emotions and your physical feelings get you in a place where you might say, you know what, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to, I have this hard commercial goal, as you say, I'm going to do it. It gets you in a place of self-strength, self-trust, or you can say, nope, this is not what I stand for, and I'm not going to do it. Purpose is a place of clarity. So yeah, it's not just soft stuff that takes time. It's hard. One of the reasons why the world of leadership is all about purpose these days. Hard stuff. That's how we change the world and make the world a stronger place for business.
Interesting. I try to close my eyes and make a deep breath. Try again after the session. Brigitte, we have one more question from Alexei Ivanov about a thing which is really important and mission critical on the current context. Can you give any tips of better in-place support who are on distant work, how to deal and keep them engaged and inspired and motivated?
Yeah, and Alexei, first of all, congratulations for asking the question, because that's such an important question in these days and age. Candidly, I think there is a lot at the moment on the internet on that question. A couple of things that have been standing out for me is whatever you can show in your mass communications or in your meetings or in your one-on-ones that shows you are concerned by their health. And we are all doing this to keep the world a healthier place. And so again, giving context, why is it so hard? Hardship is a lot harder to take if I understand why, and if I have a sense that things are fair. And at the moment, we are all at home. There is no more equalitarian thing than what's going on. So fairness, a sense of respect, showing that people are respected, and compassion are probably, I feel for you, are probably the three things that as leaders you can show. You can actually show it in how you do it. One of my colleagues actually started a meeting by saying, what is the thing that you love most about working from home? And what is the thing that really makes your life difficult? And it was a great team meeting. You get into people talking about themselves and saying things maybe they haven't talked about. When you talk about something, it becomes easier to bear. That's another thing we know about the brain. So, but there are plenty of other tips.
That's great tip. Very easy, but really driving the right level of emotional context.
Yeah.
Yes, we are running a little bit out of time already, but I think we will have the last question coming from Sergey Naumov, CEO of Piraeus Bank. The main challenge of CEO now that may happen is to take unpopular decisions. Staff cutting, salary decrease, destructuring, etc. And this is huge moral pressure, moral and emotional pressure on all staff and on CEO as well. How to handle this and how to engage people afterwards?
Yeah, it's a again right question to ask, Sergey. There's something about, as you talk about your role as an enterprise leader, your role is a long-term health of the business and of its employees. And the more you can share with people your long-term, not necessarily your long-term strategy, but your long-term objective with those decisions. You know, everybody understands that you need to keep the cash. I mean, most people, maybe not, most people understand that. You know, if you don't have cash, your company is bankrupt. So there is a way in which there are some hard facts that you can help people share and understand. The way in which you communicate, it makes a huge difference. The emphasis on what drives you, how you show up doing the right things, how you show up being fair, how you show up engaging people in some sense of, but think about, we have a couple of opportunities that we can feel for the future. These recessions come and go. I remember I was 30 years old and my boss said that. I was terrified, right? And he said, you know what? I've been there. I don't know when, I don't know how, but recessions come and go. And that was many years ago. I remember it to this day because I said, you know what? Okay, he's right. And stuff, you have no idea how some of the things you say stay in people's head and help them project themselves in the future and let them understand why you do what you do. But
great.
Yes. Yeah.
Brigitte, thank you so much. We have some more questions on the chat, but I think we will redirect them to you directly. And anyway,
My
we'll
pleasure.
be sharing your presentation tomorrow with all the participants. Thank you again. I think everybody was taking some very useful hints from your presentation today. And it's always good to reconnect with your purpose in the most complicated and the most dramatic time. When you reconnect with your purpose, that helps you to survive, that gives you energy, and that gives you drive.
Yeah. Listen, thank you for giving me this opportunity. As I said, I am very respectful of 50 CEOs and 55, 60 people I think we had online being part of this conversation. And yes, I trust that you carry forward some of this thinking because you all have it in yourself to steer your companies out of this into a different future and to guide your people successfully. So my best wishes for that, and goodbye.
Thank you, Brigitte. Thank you.